مرحبا، أنا عمران دقنيش. في 2016 رأيتني في سيارة إسعاف لما كان عمري 3 سنوات فقط. اليوم أنا في 7 من عمري وأنا بشكل جيد في حلب. أختي رؤى وأختي الصغيرة تقي في حالة جيدة. أخي عبد الله يبلغ من العمر 8 أعوام تقريبا. والدي هو محمد خير وهو أيضا بخير، ووالدتي أيضا بخير الآن. أردنا إخبار كل من صلى من أجلنا. شكرا لكم، ونحن أيضا نحبكم جميعا.
We should never allow the government to decide what is acceptable speech and what is unacceptable speech. We should penalize behaviors, not opinions, and not speech. If you start trying to regulate speech, you start trying to regulate thoughts, start trying to regulate beliefs rather than behaviors, there's no way that you're not going to abridge the constitutional rights of millions of Americans.
أهلا، أنا عمران دقنيش. لقد رأيتني في سيارة الإسعاف في حلب. عندما أطاحت الطيارات الجوية بمنزل عائلتي. أنا بأمان الآن. أردت أن أجيب على تساؤل شخص ما حول مشاعري عن نفسي وعن عائلتي عن طريق قول أنا بخير وأنا أحبك أيضا يا ديفيد.
The United States of America is now a dead nation, whose people gave in to a socialist regime that was begun by Barack Hussein Obama and the Illuminati in 2009. The liberals of this country destroyed it utterly within only 4 years after President Trump became president. The satanic hatred they projected towards him every single day was nightmarish in their attacks, but without any let-up. Now you see a love by the media for Joe Biden, not one word of hate projected at him or Kamala Harris. She advocates for the absolving of all criminal records against drug dealers and legalizing all narcotics. Then the New World Order police forces will be formed using these same persons to invade your homes, take all your personal property, your firearms, even your children, and do whatever they want to you. All the while Barack Hussein Obama laughs and says, "Oh, we must have police, or how would we be protected?" He knows how. He'll be sending them to your homes soon.
John Wayne Gacy gained his reputation as the world's most ghoulish and despicable killer by maintaining a well-stocked personal graveyard beneath the floorboards of his suburban home. Gacy was born on March 17, 1942 in Chicago, and grew up amidst an incendiary family atmosphere of anger, fear, and outright violence. His father, a Polish immigrant, was an out-of-control alcoholic whose frustrations and disappointments with life seemed to find their only outlet in abuse toward his child. Gacy Jr. retreated into a world of physical and psychological hypochondria, constantly complaining of stomach pains and heart palpitations. After completing high school, Gacy went to business college, graduated to take a job at a shoe store, and out to prove his father wrong, quickly established himself as one of the hardest-working shoe salesmen in the operation. But Gacy's stunted psychological growth continually fueled a desperate inner need to be liked and appreciated. In addition, Gacy was a habitual liar, constantly boasting of his physical and mental abilities, in a hopeless attempt to erase the debilitating effects of John Gacy Sr.'s criticisms from his memory. Although his personal psychology was relatively unhealthy, Gacy nevertheless convinced one of his co-workers, a young woman from Waterloo, Iowa, to marry him. Shortly thereafter, Gacy and his new wife moved to the small Iowa town where Gacy took the reins of his in-laws' family business, a modest fried chicken establishment, and started raising a family, a son and a daughter. Gacy instantly won the admiration of his Iowa business peers with his no-nonsense approach to business, putting in long hours and contributing his time and money to the Junior Chamber of Commerce. But Gacy's hard-won image of conscientiousness and normality was shattered completely in May of 1968, when he was arrested by local police for coercing one of his teenage restaurant employees to perform homosexual acts with him. When the charges appeared to be backed with substantial evidence, Gacy hired a youthful ne'er-do-well to attack the prosecution's star witness, but the plan backfired, and Gacy was additionally charged with obstruction of justice. Sent to an Iowa penitentiary on a 10-year sentence, Gacy saw his marriage fall apart while behind bars. But he vowed to amend his criminal actions by becoming a model prisoner, and was rewarded with a release from prison a short 18 months after his conviction. Moving back to Chicago, where his criminal record would be less conspicuous, Gacy again put his nose to the grindstone, immersing himself in one business venture after another, before finally settling upon the lucrative building contracting trade. In 1972, Gacy repeated the pattern of his pre-criminal past, winning the heart of a young Chicago woman with his pragmatic outlook on life and his responsible work ethic. Marrying her, Gacy relocated to the suburbs of Chicago, and again attempted to embrace the normal middle-class lifestyle that he'd always dreamed about. His aggressive gregariousness earned him the friendship of many of his neighbors, and brought him a measure of celebrity when he'd put on colorful makeup, don a frilly costume, and entertain children's birthday parties as the wisecracking Pogo the Clown. But while his outward appearance was that of a straight-arrow member of the community, Gacy's complex and powerful inner urges would not be stifled. In 1972, Gacy began to prowl the gay district of Chicago on the nights his wife was away. He then lured young men to a suburban home with offers of free beer, magic demonstrations, and friendly games of pool. At a strategic point in the evening, Gacy would produce a pair of trick handcuffs which he fastened and removed with ease. But when his guests playfully tried them on, they locked tight, and Gacy would expediently render his hapless prey unconscious and sexually assault him. Now driven by fear of being reported and once again imprisoned, Gacy would strangle the life from each subdued victim and bury them in the dark, damp crawl space beneath his home. By the mid-1970s, Gacy's victims numbered in the dozens, while his daytime persona of affability led him further and further up the social ladder. Gacy endeared himself to the Chicago caucus of the Democratic Party, and he was even photographed in 1978 with then First Lady Rosalind Carter. But in his desperate desire to impress, Gacy often faltered, occasionally crossing the line into outright fabrication. At one point, he had cards printed up identifying himself as a Democratic precinct captain, when in truth he was merely an active supporter in the party. Gacy had also begun taking an assortment of recreational drugs, which caused an increasingly violent temperament. This, coupled with his dwindling interest in his wife's affection, resulted in divorce in 1976. Now Gacy's murderous appetite shifted into high gear. His victims, once mostly streetwise hustlers, now included several teenagers who had simply worked for him. In a 2-month span in spring alone, at least 5 boys were sodomized, tortured, and murdered in Gacy's suburban house of horrors. When guests would complain about the rancid odor which emanated from the floor of the dwelling, Gacy would casually state that it was probably due to faulty plumbing. By October, the seeping crawl space was filled to overcapacity. Then on December 12, 1978, 15-year-old Robert Peast vanished from his Des Plaines, Illinois neighborhood after telling his mother that he was going to see a contractor about a summer job that paid $5 an hour. Alerted to the boy's disappearance, investigators noted that Gacy's construction firm had recently remodeled the drugstore where Peast had last been seen. Following up on the tip, Illinois police stopped by Gacy's home that evening to inquire about the case and immediately noticed the foul stench emanating from beneath the structure's foundation. When they asked Gacy for an explanation, he gave them a rambling statement which aroused suspicion. Investigating further, authorities discovered the first of the crawlspace bodies, kept on digging, and became more and more amazed, shocked, and disgusted at what they found. Discovering body after body, investigators leveled Gacy's home, tore up 2 driveways, and dismantled the garage in an attempt to completely catalog the wholesale carnage that Gacy had wrought. When they finally finished, 29 bodies were discovered on the property. 4 more were recovered from a nearby river, and John Wayne Gacy was arrested, charged, and convicted on all counts by a Cook County judge. Though Gacy sits on death row at the Menard Correctional Facility in Illinois, he is anything but an idle man, appearing tirelessly preoccupied with various methods of expression. He routinely corresponds with hundreds of persons, ranging from Christian ministers to well-known heavy metal musicians. In this pursuit, Gacy often displays his genius for manipulation, adapting the text of his letters to perfectly suit the personality of each reader. His replies can be tender and eloquent, with touches of sanctimonious self-pity, or coarse and mean-spirited, containing lewd poetry and pornographic cartoons. Despite the overwhelming evidence which convicted him, Gacy still maintains his innocence with a series of typed flyers he distributes by mail. He also authored a rambling, mammoth autobiography entitled A Question of Doubt, which presents a cloudy string of alibis for the murders. Perhaps more impressive is the craftsmanship Gacy displays in a fully articulated scale model of his now-defunct murder house, constructed entirely from cigar boxes. But the one jailhouse venture from which John Gacy has achieved true notoriety is the sale of his sketches and paintings. Though fairly crude, these items of art have proven quite popular as curios and conversation pieces, with many turning up in gallery shows nationwide. The notion that a sadistic killer could profit from his infamy created a firestorm of controversy in the press, with particular outrage expressed by the parents of Gacy's victims. A closer examination of Gacy's favorite art themes tend to reveal an often sardonic and cruel sense of humor on his part. One example being his Hi-Ho series, in which he depicts the classic Disney characters, the 7 dwarfs, marching through a variety of settings. The grotesquely rendered figures, happily returning from a dark abyss with digging tools in hand, readily conjures images of the hellish crawlspace which housed Gacy's many victims. Several other paintings in the Gacy collection are more shamelessly ghoulish, while still others are wholesome, respectable images, designed to attract the more serious and discerning art customer. Gacy's most popular paintings of all are his self-portraits, in which he appears as his infamous clown creations Pogo and Patches. Psychologists agree that the makeups Gacy devised for these traditionally cheerful characters instead reveal a deep-seated desire to instill terror in children. The departure from the standard well-rounded eye and mouth shadows actually give his clowns a grim, menacing quality, reminiscent of a grinning death's head. By always placing his painted clowns in a forest setting, Gacy also lends a telling predatory quality to these creations. By 1991, however, the tide began to turn for the ever-industrious John Gacy, when a new warden at Menard Prison issued an order officially disallowing further sales of his art from the facility. And late the following year, it was announced that the killer's original sentence of death by lethal injection would finally be carried out in mid-1994. Exactly.
No part of this program may be reproduced, copied, manipulated, or distributed under the copyright laws of this socialist world order country. Anyone violating this law will be subject to corporal punishment. Tortures incurred would including a paddling, a spanking, a whipping, or a beating at the discretion of your dictatorship magistrate office. In the North American Union it would be under the stipulation of Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, Barack Hussein Obama's minions.